History remembers victories, but it is shaped by failures. And few failures changed the course of the 20th century as dramatically as the one that unfolded on the long, frozen road to Moscow. What began as a lightning campaign, swift, brutal, and seemingly unstoppable, slowly transformed into one of the most punishing military catastrophes of the modern age. Tonight, we journey through not just the events, but the forces, the miscalculations, and the human stories behind the collapse of one of history's most feared armies. This is the deeper truth behind why Hitler lost the Battle of Moscow. Our story begins in the summer of 1941. Europe had fallen like dominoes. France in 6 weeks. The Balkans in mere days. Norway, Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, all crushed under the weight of the Wehrmacht's precision and speed. Germany seemed invincible. Its armies marched with meticulously engineered firepower. Its generals commanded with confidence forged in victory. And so, when Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in the history of warfare, many believed the Soviet Union would collapse in a matter of months. But behind the facade of chaos, something else was happening. Soviet factories began dismantling themselves piece by piece, fleeing east beyond the reach of German artillery. Entire industries vanished overnight, swallowed by the Ural Mountains. Civilians dug fortifications with bare hands. Divisions were raised at a pace unmatched in modern warfare. While maps in Berlin predicted total victory by autumn, a darker, more complex truth was unfolding on the ground. The first great mistake was born even before the invasion began. Hitler underestimated the Soviet Union. He expected a decapitated government, a demoralized army, and a terrified population. But the Soviet people, shocked, wounded, grieving, did something unexpected. They resisted. Villages burned by retreating Soviet units left nothing for the invader. Bridges were destroyed before German columns could cross. Farms were evacuated, livestock driven away. Railways torn apart. Every kilometer gained cost Germany precious time, fuel, and manpower. Time, the one resource Germany could never replenish. Then came the second fatal decision. Splitting the German advance. Moscow, the beating heart of Soviet administration, industry, and communication, was the obvious strategic target. But Hitler diverted massive forces toward the Baltic region and Ukraine, chasing oil fields, ports, and symbolic victories. Generals protested. They knew that every unit pulled away weakened army group, sent to the force tasked with taking Moscow. But Hitler, consumed by ideological fantasies and resource obsession, refused to listen. He believed he could have everything at once. Instead, he lost everything slowly. As summer turned to autumn, the invincible German war machine began to sink literally into the earth. The Rasputitsa, the infamous Eastern European mud season, swallowed tanks and trucks. Roads dissolved into rivers of brown sludge. Vehicles were abandoned amid. Soldiers marched knee-deep in mud, carrying equipment too heavy for their exhausted bodies. Every step forward became a battle, not against the enemy, but against the land itself. And behind them, a supply system designed for short, decisive campaigns buckled under the strain. Railways had incompatible gauges. Supply lines stretched hundreds of kilometers. Fuel arrived late, or not at all. Ammunition rations decreased. Winter clothing, considered unnecessary after Germany's rapid summer victories, was still stacked in warehouses. Far behind the front, German soldiers, who once advanced with machine-like precision, now fought with threadbare uniforms and dwindling supplies. Then, without warning, the temperature dropped. Not to 0, not to 10 below, but to 40 degrees below freezing. A cold so fierce it turned breath into ice crystals. A cold that split metal, froze engines, and rendered weapons useless. Rifle bolts snapped like glass. Oil solidified. Horses died standing, frozen in place. Fingers blackened. Eyelashes froze shut. German soldiers wrapped themselves in blankets, curtains, sacks, anything they could find just to survive the night. This was no ordinary winter. It was the kind of winter only Russia could unleash. And while the Wehrmacht shivered, the Soviets adapted. Siberian divisions men trained in the harshest climates on Earth arrived by the thousands, wearing white camouflage, skis strapped to their boots, their weapons designed to function in extreme cold. At last, the truth became clear to everyone except the one person who needed to see it. The German offensive had died before it ever reached the gates of Moscow, but Hitler refused to accept reality. Retreat was forbidden. Every village, every frozen foxhole, every snow-covered field had to be held at all costs. Generals pleaded for permission to fall back, to regroup, to preserve what remained of their exhausted troops. But Hitler, driven by pride and illusion, answered with one word: no. Then came December, the turning point, with the ground frozen hard as stone. The Red Army struck with overwhelming force. Tens of thousands of Soviet soldiers surged forward across the snow. German lines already overstretched and undersupplied buckled instantly. What followed was not a battle, it was a collapse. Entire divisions disintegrated. Units retreated without orders. Frostbitten soldiers abandoned equipment too heavy to drag through the snow. Tanks lay mobilized, their engines dead, their turrets frozen shut. For the first time since the war began, the German army, Hitler's proud war machine, was in full retreat. The myth of invincibility shattered. The Battle of Moscow had not merely stalled the German advance, it had reversed the trajectory of the entire war. It proved that Nazi Germany could be stopped not by superior firepower, but by a combination of resilience, resourcefulness, geography, climate, and the catastrophic hubris of its own leadership. Hitler lost the Battle of Moscow not because the Wehrmacht was weak, but because it was sent into a campaign built on illusions. Illusions of quick victory, illusions of racial superiority, illusions of strategic brilliance. The reality was far colder and far harsher. On the frozen plains outside Moscow, the German war machine met three enemies it could not defeat: distance, winter, and the unbreakable will of a nation fighting for survival. And so, the battle that was supposed to be the climax of Hitler's empire became instead the beginning of its end, a lesson etched in ice, mud, and blood, a warning to all future empires. On the road to Moscow, confidence becomes arrogance, and arrogance becomes defeat. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into history as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. See you next time.